In a disturbing development highlighting the lengths to which some will go to suppress dissent, 2 foreign nationals have been arrested for allegedly orchestrating a campaign of harassment against a Los Angeles resident critical of Chinese President Xi Jinping. The arrests were announced by the U.S. Justice Department on April 25, 2025, and serve as a stark reminder of the ongoing tensions between the United States and China regarding freedom of expression and human rights. Guanghai, a 43-year-old Chinese national, and John Miller, a 63-year-old British citizen, were apprehended by Serbian authorities at the request of the United States. According to a criminal complaint filed by federal prosecutors, their campaign against the unnamed victim commenced in October 2023 as the individual prepared to protest Xi Jinping's attendance at the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation APEC summit in San Francisco. The complaint details a disturbing series of actions, including surveillance of the victim, the installation of a tracking device on his vehicle, and even the slashing of his car tires. As the situation escalated, Chui and Miller allegedly directed others to purchase and destroy 2 statues that the victim had created which depicted Xi and his wife. Remarkably, federal authorities revealed that the individuals enlisted by the suspects were, unbeknownst to them, working under the direction of the FBI. This covert operation underscores the lengths that certain factions within the Chinese government may resort to in order to stifle criticism abroad. The harassment did not cease with the APEC summit. In the spring of 2025, after the victim announced plans to publicly display new artistic works featuring the Chinese leaders, Chui and Miller allegedly attempted to thwart this initiative by paying approximately $36,500 to individuals who were again connected to the FBI. Their actions highlight a calculated effort to intimidate and silence opposition voices, reflecting broader concerns about the reach of the Chinese government in foreign territories. Both suspects face serious charges, including conspiracy and interstate stalking, with potential maximum penalties of 10 years in prison if convicted. The U.S. authorities are also pursuing extradition to bring them to American soil for trial, emphasizing the government's commitment to addressing such transnational threats. This incident has significant implications not only for U.S.-China relations but also for the broader issue of free speech and the lengths to which authoritarian regimes may go to suppress dissent. As more cases of foreign interference and intimidation come to light, it raises essential questions about the safety of activists and critics of oppressive governments living abroad. Looking ahead, the U.S. is likely to increase scrutiny of foreign nationals operating within its borders, particularly those linked to authoritarian regimes. This incident may serve as a pivotal moment in the ongoing dialogue about human rights and freedom of expression, potentially prompting legislative and diplomatic measures aimed at protecting dissidents. The world will be closely watching how this case unfolds and the broader repercussions it may herald in the struggle against political repression. In a remarkable display of contrasting narratives, President Donald Trump recently claimed that he is actively negotiating with Chinese President Xi Jinping over tariffs, a statement that has been met with firm denial from Chinese officials. The discord between the U.S. and China is growing increasingly pronounced, with both nations embroiled in a trade war that has far-reaching implications for their economies and global markets. During an interview with Time magazine published on April 25, 2025, Trump asserted that he had spoken with Xi and suggested that discussions were ongoing regarding tariffs imposed on Chinese imports. "We're meeting with China," he stated emphatically. However, when pressed for specifics about the timing of these alleged conversations, Trump was vague, saying only that he had spoken to him many times. These remarks were ostensibly aimed at assuaging the trepidation of investors, as stock markets have been rattled by the protracted standoff between the two economic powerhouses. Contrary to Trump's optimistic tone, Chinese officials have been unequivocal in their rebuttal. Wei Jiaquan, spokesperson for China's foreign ministry, categorically stated China and the U.S. have not held consultations or negotiations on the issue of tariffs, emphasizing that the U.S. should not mislead the public. He Yadong, a spokesman for the Ministry of Commerce, reinforced this position, declaring that any claims of progress in negotiations were baseless rumors without factual evidence. The tension between the two nations has escalated in recent months, particularly following Trump's decision to increase tariffs on Chinese imports to rates as high as 145%. This aggressive move was intended to pressure China into trade negotiations, but it has instead prompted retaliatory tariffs from Beijing, further straining economic ties. The implications of these tariffs extend beyond government negotiations. Businesses reliant on Chinese goods, ranging from retailers to manufacturers, are facing significant disruptions, with many halting shipments entirely in response to the mounting costs. Amid these developments, the Trump administration has faced internal pressures regarding the sustainability of its current trade strategy. Despite the president's assertions of success, his economic advisors express anxiety over the potential fallout from the trade war, particularly as major retailers warn of empty store shelves if tariffs remain in place. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick are reportedly concerned about the adverse effects on the U.S. economy, with some suggesting a re-evaluation of the tariff strategy is necessary. In a demonstration of his administration's precarious position, Trump claimed that he has already secured 200 deals with various countries regarding tariffs, although he declined to provide specific details or names of the nations involved. He projected confidence that negotiations would conclude successfully in the coming weeks, stating, "I would say over the next 3 to 4 weeks and we're finished." However, many trade experts remain skeptical, noting that substantial trade agreements typically require extensive negotiations and time to finalize. As the trade war continues to unfold, the geopolitical landscape remains uncertain. Both Trump and Xi appear to be at a stalemate, with each side unwilling to back down on their respective stances. While Trump's administration hopes that economic pressure will compel China to negotiate on U.S. terms, Chinese officials have signaled a willingness to endure hardship rather than concede to perceived bullying tactics. As the situation develops, the impact of these tariffs both on the American economy and international trade relations will be closely monitored. With midterm elections approaching, Trump's approval ratings, particularly regarding economic management, are under scrutiny, and the pressure to deliver tangible results in trade negotiations is mounting. The coming weeks will be critical in determining whether a thaw in U.S.-China relations is possible or if the two nations will remain locked in an escalating economic conflict. In a bold move to address the mounting economic challenges posed by the ongoing trade war with the United States, Chinese President Xi Jinping has unveiled a comprehensive plan aimed at revitalizing the Chinese economy. This announcement comes at a time when the effects of the trade conflict initiated during the Trump presidency continue to reverberate across both nations, impacting industries, job markets, and economic growth. As China grapples with the fallout from the pandemic and spiraling youth unemployment, Xi's strategy seeks to mitigate these issues while signaling a potential shift in tariff policies that could ease tensions between the two economic giants. During a recent meeting of the Politburo, which convened to discuss the state of the economy, Xi emphasized the need for strengthening bottom-line thinking. The official state media outlet Xinhua reported that while the economy has displayed signs of a positive trend, the impact of external shocks has increased. The session highlighted the necessity of preparing emergency plans and executing solid economic work to counteract the adverse effects of external pressures, particularly from high tariffs. Reports indicate that China is considering lowering tariffs on specific U.S. products, including essential semiconductors, as part of its strategy to stimulate the domestic economy and alleviate the burdens imposed by retaliatory tariffs from the U.S. The Politburo's readout proposed several interventions, including increasing unemployment insurance payouts and enhancing support for troubled enterprises. "We should take multiple measures to help enterprises in difficulties," the readout stated, underscoring the urgency of economic support amid rising inflation and declining consumer confidence. Wen Ti-sung, a non-resident fellow at the Atlantic Council's Global China Hub, remarked that the decisions made by the Politburo indicate a recognition of the hostile international economic landscape. Sung noted that China appears prepared for a prolonged trade conflict, suggesting that the nation is doubling down on domestic demand and fiscal stimulus as global market conditions remain tepid. As discussions about potential tariff exemptions circulate, there are indications that China may exclude certain U.S. products from the steep 125% tariffs that have hampered trade. This week, reports surfaced that some semiconductor products would no longer be subject to these duties, a move welcomed by industry leaders. Michael Hart, head of the American Chamber of Commerce in China, highlighted that Chinese authorities are actively inquiring about U.S. imports that are difficult to source elsewhere, indicating a willingness on both sides to reassess tariff structures. Despite these developments, the rhetoric from the U.S. government continues to diverge from Beijing's stance. President Trump recently claimed that communication between him and Xi has occurred regarding tariffs, a notion that the Chinese government has firmly denied. This disconnect illustrates the complexities of navigating negotiations amid a backdrop of mutual distrust and conflicting narratives. The trade war's ramifications extend beyond tariffs, affecting stock markets and economic stability in both countries. As Trump noted in a recent interview, tariffs are expected to come down substantially, hinting at a possible de-escalation. However, the lack of a formal negotiating framework raises concerns about the feasibility of reaching a mutually beneficial agreement. China's leadership appears resolute in its approach, confident in its political stability and ability to endure economic pressure longer than the U.S. administration. This confidence is fortified by China's control over critical resources, which could significantly impact U.S. industries if the trade war persists. While Trump has insisted that the U.S. holds the upper hand, China's leaders view the current situation as an opportunity to assert their economic strategy without immediate concessions. Looking ahead, both Xi and Trump are expected to attend the APEC leaders meeting in South Korea this November, which could serve as a pivotal moment for potential discussions on trade. The prospect of renewed negotiations remains uncertain, yet the ongoing dialogue and shifting economic strategies signal that both nations are keenly aware of the costs associated with continued conflict. As the situation unfolds, the global economic landscape will be closely watched for signs of reconciliation or further entrenchment in this high-stakes trade war. In a striking case that highlights the complexities of international relations and the lengths to which some will go to silence dissent. 2 foreign nationals have been arrested in connection with a harassment campaign against a Los Angeles resident critical of Chinese President Xi Jinping. According to the U.S. Justice Department, the suspects Cui Guanghai, 43, from China, and John Miller, 63, from the United Kingdom, were apprehended by Serbian law enforcement at the request of U.S. authorities. The criminal complaint alleges that the harassment began in October 2023, coinciding with the lead-up to the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation APEC summit in November, where President Xi was scheduled to appear. The unnamed victim had previously made public statements opposing the actions and policies of the Chinese government. Federal prosecutors claim that Cui and Miller enlisted 2 individuals in the United States to surveil the victim and intimidate him, which included placing a tracking device on his car and damaging his property. In a twist of fate, the 2 U.S.-based accomplices were reportedly affiliated with the FBI and were acting under its direction unbeknownst to Cui and Miller. This clever maneuver by federal authorities appears to be part of a broader strategy to counteract foreign intimidation tactics on American soil. The FBI's involvement underscores the seriousness of the situation, as it illustrates the lengths to which some regimes will go to suppress dissent even abroad. As the campaign escalated, Cui and Miller allegedly sought to prevent the victim from displaying new artistic works that depicted President Xi and his wife. They purportedly paid about $36,500 to further intimidate the victim into silence. The Justice Department has indicated that both suspects face serious charges, including conspiracy and interstate stalking, which could lead to a maximum of 10 years in prison if convicted. The case sheds light on the broader implications of authoritarian regimes extending their influence beyond their borders. It raises significant questions regarding the safety of activists and critics of such governments, particularly in democratic nations like the United States. The chilling effect of such intimidation tactics can stifle free expression and dissent, posing a significant challenge to democratic values. Looking ahead, this incident may prompt a re-evaluation of how the US and other nations address foreign interference and intimidation. As international tensions grow, particularly between the US and China, it will be critical for governments to protect the rights of individuals who stand up against oppressive regimes. The arrests of Cui and Miller may serve as a deterrent to similar acts of intimidation in the future. But they also highlight the ongoing struggle for freedom of expression in the face of powerful adversaries. As the geopolitical landscape continues to evolve, the actions taken by the US in response to this case could set important precedents for how nations protect their citizens from foreign threats and uphold the values of free speech and dissent. The ramifications of this incident will likely resonate in future diplomatic engagements and discussions on human rights, making it a pivotal moment in the ongoing dialogue about global governance and individual freedoms. In a notable demonstration of regional diplomacy, Chinese President Xi Jinping recently embarked on a tour of Southeast Asia, visiting Vietnam, Malaysia, and Cambodia. This trip marked Xi's first overseas endeavor of the year and underscored China's commitment to nurturing relationships with its neighbors. Echoing a well-known Chinese proverb, which emphasizes the value of close relationships over distant ones, this visit reflects a long-standing cultural ethos that prioritizes neighborly support and cooperation. The essence of China's approach to foreign policy is encapsulated in its philosophy of amity, sincerity, mutual benefit, and inclusiveness. This diplomatic framework is not a recent development. Rather, it is deeply embedded in the fabric of Chinese civilization and reflects historical practices where neighbors were considered extensions of the family. In traditional Chinese society, communities relied on each other during significant life events, fostering a spirit of cooperation and shared responsibility that continues to inform China's international relations today. During Xi's Southeast Asia tour, he emphasized the importance of regional harmony and cooperation, aligning his administration's goals with the Confucian ideal of benevolence. This visit not only aimed to strengthen bilateral ties but also sought to reinforce the concept of a shared future for neighboring countries. Xi's engagements highlighted ongoing initiatives in trade infrastructure and mutual support, reiterating China's desire to cultivate a stable and prosperous regional environment. This diplomatic momentum is further reflected in recent developments between China and Kazakhstan, where a strategic dialogue was held in Almaty between Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi and Kazakhstan's Deputy Prime Minister Murat Nurtlu. Wang emphasized the enduring friendship and partnership between the two nations, noting that their cooperation has deepened significantly, particularly in trade and energy. China is willing to work with Kazakhstan to implement important consensus reached by the two heads of state, said Wang, as he outlined plans to enhance bilateral relations and foster economic growth. Kazakhstan reciprocated this sentiment, acknowledging China as a trustworthy partner and expressing optimism about future cooperation. Nurtlu remarked on the robust and expanding ties, citing record levels of bilateral trade and collaborative projects that aim to benefit both nations. The two countries are keen to explore innovative areas of cooperation, particularly in technology and the digital economy, which could inject new momentum into their development trajectories. As the geopolitical landscape continues to evolve, the contrasting philosophies of U.S. hegemony and China's cooperative diplomacy become increasingly pronounced. While the United States often emphasizes a more transactional approach, China advocates for a model centered on mutual respect and shared benefits. This divergence not only reflects differing national priorities but also shapes the dynamics of international relations in a rapidly changing world. Looking ahead, the implications of these diplomatic engagements are significant. As China continues to assert its influence in Southeast Asia and Central Asia, fostering strong ties with its neighbors, the potential for collaborative initiatives and regional stability appears promising. With a focus on shared prosperity and mutual respect, China's neighborhood diplomacy may well set the tone for its future interactions on the global stage, paving the way for new partnerships and heightened cooperation in addressing common challenges. As these developments unfold, the world will be watching closely to see how they reshape the geopolitical landscape in the years to come.